Good afternoon. We are having a special meeting of the MDUSD board here on October 21st. It is 4:02 p.m. and we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please join me in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. And we'll start roll call with Vice President Mason.
Here.
Ms. Durkee.
Here.
Ms. Cound.
Here.
Ms. Mayo.
Here.
Ms. Alas.
Here.
And so we have a very special edition. So if you've been watching or paying attention lately, you know that we have a student board member. So Michelle Alas is with us here, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clark to swear her in.
Great. Yes, thank you very much, President Lawrence. So we are very excited to welcome our newest member to the governance team for the Mount Diablo Unified School District, and that is student board member Michelle Alas. And so I have the oath of office that we will need her to complete so that her duties become official. So Michelle, if you will please stand. Great, and if you will raise your right hand and please repeat after me. So this is for, first of all, this is for the office of student governing board member for the Mount Diablo Unified School District. You don't need to repeat that. However, you will need to repeat everything from here on out. I, Michelle Alas, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States.
Of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or a purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
Upon which I am about to enter.
Upon which I am about to enter.
So subscribed and sworn to, you don't have to repeat this, subscribed and, no, you do have to repeat this. Subscribed and sworn to me this 21st day of October 2020.
So subscribe and sworn to me this 21st day of October.
In the year of 2020.
In the year of 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very official.
Well done, Dr. Clark, and congratulations, Ms. Alas. So with that, we're going to go ahead. We have public comment, and so I believe we have around 14 or so speakers who will be joining us on the Zoom. I think we're going to take them in groups of 3. So public comment, the public may address the board concerning items that are scheduled for this special board meeting only. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. speakers are not allowed to yield their time. So we will go ahead and give everyone an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes, and we will go from there. So I will turn it over to, I believe, Laura and Austin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Board President, and good evening to the rest of the board, superintendent, and to the general public. That's correct. And just as a reminder to our general public, we do have two methods of leaving public comment. The first being your emailing to boardcomments@mdusd.org, an email that is automatically sent to all of our trustees and then subsequently entered into the public record. So for our public comment in person, each of these participants had pre-registered using the second method, that is to email publiccomments@mdusd.org. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and admit just a few here to our waiting room. And they've been instructed to wait until they are called upon to leave their comment. And as you said, Mr. Board President, they'll have 3 minutes to speak and their time will begin at their first word. So first in our sequence, we will have Gloria Jean, and that would be followed by Tamar Gonzalez. So first, Gloria Jean. Gloria, whenever you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and your time will begin.
Sorry about that. Yeah, actually, I apologize. I had done a meeting with a friend and I left my old name in there. This is Roy Powell and our son is Harrison. I'm going to make this really short and sweet. We realize that this is a really difficult time and a really nerve-wracking time for everybody, but please do what you can to help us to get students back to school. It is really important, and I just wanted to communicate that. It's very important for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. It has been heard. I'll ask you to dismiss yourself from the meeting. And as we said, we'll have Tamar Gonzalez and followed by Natalia Pelletier. But first, Tamar Gonzalez, I'll ask you to unmute, and whenever you're ready.
Okay, hi, can you guys hear me? I just wanted to say, I went through all the emails that I saw submitted to you guys today, and after reading them all, I really do, I realize how split people are. I see many fearful people, people that don't want to go back to school, students, teachers, everything, and I understand that. And I think my main thing is I want a choice. Right now, I don't feel like I have a choice for my children. And that's the hard thing. I know that the school district has been given millions of dollars to help us reopen safely. I'm watching other school districts make a plan to go back in person, hybrid, and kind of sitting here watching that along with my kids' friends move out of state, get pulled to private school, all kinds of stuff because they don't have a choice. I have a 2-year-old that I've had a choice to have in daycare since March. And these are grubby 2-year-olds. And because of the sanitation that's been upped, I haven't seen her never get a sniffle. And I think this is very possible for us to go back safely. I understand other people's concerns. And I just think if they have a choice to stay home, stay home. Those teachers, they can do their distance learning. It can be figured out. But I just want to be able to have a choice for my children to go back in person and hopefully as soon as possible. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comment has been heard. Next, we'll have Natalia Pelletier, and that would be followed by an anonymous, I should say, identifier as iPad Home. But first, Natalia. Natalia, when you're ready, go ahead and unmute. Looks like Natalia has left the meeting, so we will proceed with iPad Home. If we could ask you to unmute, and whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Jenny Sang. At the last board meeting, I was speaking on behalf of 200 parents and over 273 children who signed the MDUSD petition for safe in-person education. The support for the petition has grown. I now speak on behalf of at least 437 parents and 640 children in your school district. I understand whether we should reopen is a hard decision for the board, but each of you were elected and Dr. Clark was hired to make hard but sound science and data-based decisions. On October 6, Dr. Ghali, the California Secretary for the Health and Human Services Agency, said in a press briefing, "We have not seen a connection between increased transmission and school reopening or in-person learning. We're looking at the information to see if there's a connection, and so far we have not found one." So I get there's all kinds of studies out there and you don't want to rely on the wrong one. But if you don't believe Dr. Ghali, an officer for the state of California, then each of you are making decisions on emotions, which is a reckless way to govern the 29,000 students who depend on you. Also, I understand that we have to protect the teachers who are in the vulnerable population due to their age or having pre-existing conditions such as obesity, heart and respiratory conditions, and diabetes. But has there been any discussion whether the teachers unions, with the teachers union, about having these teachers get on a doctor's note, placing them on some type of disability? If they are on some type of disability, this could be a legal mechanism to put these teachers strictly on distance learning duty and to protect them. I won't take credit for this idea. It was proposed by Dr. Bhattacharya, a professor at Stanford University Medical School, a physician, an epidemiologist, a health economist, and a public health policy expert that focused on infectious disease and vulnerable populations. Many schools around you have made concrete plans for the return, while you still haven't. In Contra Costa, the following will return to some form of in-person learning. Walnut Creek Unified School District, they will start reopening next week for special needs kids. Liberty Union High School, a high school, will reopen on January 12. San Ramon Valley Unified School District, a district with 32,000 students, will open on January 5. So I'm asking each of you.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. So I'm asking each of you to step up. I ask each of you to consider not only the transmission risks of COVID, but also what are you going to do to prevent the destruction of livelihoods, child abuse, permanent learning loss, and teen suicide when deciding whether to reopen our schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your comment has been heard. And for our last comment, we have Gloria Jean. Gloria, I'll ask you to unmute. And when you're ready, please proceed.
Yeah, I had already.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so I'll go ahead and ask you to excuse yourself from this particular meeting. If you wanted to continue watching the board meeting, we do have a link posted on our board meetings page. Mr. Board President, that does conclude our public comment portion, not having any other participants.
Great, thank you very much for that. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the superintendent. So Dr. Clark, over to you.
Great, thank you. And as always, we value and appreciate the input that we receive from our stakeholders. However, what I would like to do next is we are going to discuss our reopening plan this evening, and again, this is the plan that was submitted to the board over the summer. And so the board did receive the plan and did receive this information. You know, we have been working on this diligently since summer. However, when health orders and orders not only from the governor of our state, but when orders from Contra Costa County, from our own public health, change, then we have to be nimble as a district as well and changed. And so I just want to assure the public that we have been working on this continuously, and tonight we will share an update of where we are in our plan and what steps we're going to take to move forward. However, in the spirit of getting input from our stakeholders, at our last study session on this topic, we invited the president of the Mount Diablo Education Association to come and address the board and to have a voice in this matter. And today I have invited Carmen Torres, who is the president of our CST organization, which represents all of our office managers and secretaries throughout the district. I've invited her to address the board and the public as well on some of the concerns or questions of her members, because she does represent a vital part of our organization. And so without any further ado, Carmen, can I kick it to you?
Okay. Can you hear me? I don't know if they can hear me.
We can
I
hear
can
you.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Carmen.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, Superintendent Dr. Clark and board members. My name is Carmen Terrones Torres. I'm the president for CST, and I am here with Jane Kwiatkowski, our first VP, and also Concord High Registrar. We want to thank you for the opportunity given to this unit to provide an input on regard and reopening the schools to in-person instruction. Something very important that I just heard from Dr. Clark, that I represent a very vital unit for this district, but unfortunately that's not how we are being treated. Actually, I was doubting whether or not to do this presentation because I think my members had very clearly responded to the survey that was sent. We have been, we returned to the sites on May 2020, and some of our members at the elementary level in August without an MOU in place. We were the first ones in and the last ones with an MOU signed. We have been working out of class without pay. There seems to be an issue of interpretation of my contract. We had many schools that started the school year without staff or partial staffing. Some of my members have been handling 2 or 3 desks, and again, without compensation. If this continues, my members will start working out of class and many things will not be done, especially registering those little precious kids into our schools and have the schools ready to start whenever we determine to reopen. The CST unit is and has always been in the front line. This is the unit that is out there putting their lives on the line. I know of many administrators working from home, but in our unit, every request to work from home is being denied because we're essential employees and we have to be in person. But we have an MOU that states that we can do that. The CST unit is a dedicated, hardworking group of employees MDUSD has, and unfortunately, we're not treated fairly and we feel disrespected continuously. We understand students are missing so much instruction. I am a grandparent of 2 kids in this district, and I understand those parents that are rushing and wanted the schools to reopen and want to bring the kids home. My daughter is driving insane with my 2 grandkids, so I understand. But we're not childcare. We're not childcare providers. Socialization is also missing, but unfortunately, this unit does not feel the district is ready to reopen. We sent a small survey to my unit, and out of that, 50% of our membership voted no to reopen in person. 30% voted yes with protocols in place and being enforced. Right now, it seems to be that there is a protocol, but nobody's following it. There's no training. Those who voted no fear for their health and their family, as they are the ones having direct contact with families and students. Sites are not being properly cleaned at night. This has been reported to MNO. Sites will require an isolation room and a certificated staff to supervise them. Protocol established for students not wearing masks. Are they going to be disciplined? Where are they going to be sent? Cleaning supplies, PPE supplies. as of now, my understanding is that schools are not really ready to receive 300, 400, or even 2,000 students at the schools. Who will supervise students who are not wearing masks? Where will they be sent? We need more custodians. Who will perform health checks to students? Will they be done every morning? If so, who will do it? We don't have a nurse assigned to the school, and it will be too much for a nurse. People will probably hate me right now if I'm throwing them the responsibility of doing that. We're not LVNs, we're not nurses. The ventilation system in this district is very old. How can we plan on reopening the schools when we're not prepared? Maybe a hybrid model would be something that we could look into it. But as of right now, this unit is against reopening school to in-person instruction. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. It is appreciated. Dr. Clark.
Well, and I do want to thank Carmen for sharing. Again, she represents a vital group of employees on our in our organization, and they are loyal. They are in our sites. They have been at our sites every day, from the beginning of the year, and they are providing a critical service not only to our community, but to our students and to our staff. And so we do appreciate them, and I'm glad that Carmen accepted my invitation to come and share her concerns and thoughts with the board and with the public. So with that, thank you, Carmen, and thank you to your unit members. Okay.
Can I just ask a
So,
quick question of Carmen?
Sure. Carmen, are you good for questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask just a clarification. When you said that with the survey, the 50% that voted no to reopen, were people thinking reopen was a hybrid model or even just small groups? What were you thinking in terms of how you define reopen in that case?
Reopen into bringing the students 100% into the classrooms. They're more open to have a hybrid model, but not right away. We need to see maintenance, the protocols, the PPE in place, and some kind of training. Everybody talks about this, what was it called, this form that I just found out, nobody has seen it, is the risk, oh gosh, I forgot, I am so sorry. Oh, here it is. It's the risk analysis plan. It's a form that apparently our administrators should have discussed with us. We should have signed it. Our administrators should have signed. It talks about the masks and all that, but nobody has seen it. My unit has not seen it at all. So until then, I don't think we're ready to even open into, not even considering a hybrid model.
All right, thank you very much.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So so with that said, I would like, and many of the concerns that that were brought up by Carmen, and also that were brought up by some of our speakers, will be covered in the presentation that I will be going through. However, if I could get Tech to please pull up the learning loss data. So we wanted to present to the board and to the public sort of our the data that we were able to collect. As everyone knows, the state last year suspended testing of CASP testing, and so therefore we had to rely on our iReady assessments and assessments that we've already had in place. So the data that I'm going to share with you today consists of, first of all, we're going to look at some of our chronic absentee numbers, and then we're going to look at some of our iReady assessments in ELA, English Language Arts, and in math. And then we're going to look at some of our secondary DNF lists, and then we're going to look at some of our advanced placement exams data. And again, this is just a little bit of just background information and data for the board and for the public. So next slide, please. So first of all, this is our current chronic absentee data broken down by subgroups. And so what chronic absenteeism is on the day that it's collected, students who have missed 10% or more of the school year as of that time, right? So if we have only been in school for 10 days, so 2 weeks, and a student misses a day, then that student is chronically absent because they have missed 10% of the school year. So then, of course, as you add days on there, then that's how you come up with this number. So this is what our chronic absentee data looks as of now, as of last week, and you can see the green is our students who are not chronic absent. And in the red, you can see where students who are chronic absence. And so, so again, all students is at 8.7%, so roughly 2,500 students. That is representing all students. And then probably from this data, the most concerning data would be our homeless population. And although here we have 36% of our homeless population, roughly 205 students are deemed chronically absent at this point. So this is current data. If I can have the next slide, we can see last year's data. And so as you see with homeless, it was also high last year, but if you look at all students, it was up 11.2%, and I know that currently we're at approximately 8%. So there is some changes, but again, this data is posted on our agenda for all to study and look very closely at. Next slide, please. And so we did provide 3 years of our chronic absentee data, and I just want to preface, I can't preface it enough, that the previous 2 years, well, 18-19 is a full year. So out of 180 days, these are students who've missed 10% of that time. And I know with last year, with going to distance learning mid-year, it really does skew the data from last year. But I think if you look at this is what it looks like in a normal year. Okay, next slide. And then, so this is our current. This is a 3-year look at our iReady ELA diagnostic test. And so this is a test that students take at the beginning of the year because, again, it's a diagnostic. It's not a summative. Summative would be at the end. And so what we're looking at is we want to be over in the right side. And so those are percentage of students who have scored mid or above grade level. And as you can see currently, we have 26%, but during the previous 2 years, it's been hovering right around 18%. And so as we look at that data, we also want to go to the far left, and we want to look at our percentage of students who have scored 3 or more grade levels below. And you can also see those numbers as well. Can I have the next slide? And this is the same design of the data. However, this is for our math. And can we have the next slide? I now want to look at the DNF list, and students in middle and high school receive letter grades. And so this is how it looked after first quarter. At least a student has received at least 1 D or F. And so you can see the data for 18-19 and 19-20, and then you can see what it looks like currently. So after this last quarter, you can see, you can see the increase of a student who received at least 1 D or F. Next slide, please. And this data set shows students who've received multiple Ds or Fs. And so again, you can see the, where we were 2 years ago and last year, and then where we are currently. So clearly, there's an increase of D's and F's throughout our district. So I know there's a debate around, is distance learning working, and it's not working for some and working for others. Clearly at the secondary level, we have many students who are struggling. We acknowledge that, and again, I want to just be completely transparent with the data, and here it is for all to see. Can I have the next slide, please? And this is just, we just wanted to share this. I figured we, try to share some good news with with some of that disparaging data that we had previously. But this is students who have taken the advanced placement tests, and this is just our data for students who have passed at least one. And so you can see from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. I'm very impressed. I can tell you from the data that I'm very impressed with our sophomores. I think they do, they do quite well. However, next year, when we share this data, I'll be real concerned to see how this data looks like for 2021. And next slide, please. And then this is our group of students who have passed multiple AP tests. And again, those sophomores really seem to be doing a good job. But students who are taking multiple AP classes and passing multiple tests is something that really should be acknowledged and celebrated by all. So again, this is just our current data. This is what we were able to pull together with limited opportunities for assessments, and also in creating a standard environment for an assessment to be administered and taken up. However, this data is published on this agenda and is available for all to see. If I can have Tech, please bring up my the superintendent's report presentation.
And Dr. Clark, while we're doing that, can we just check with the board to see if there are any questions on the previous presentation?
I have one. So when we were looking at the first slide, and where it was delineating the chronic absenteeism, just for my own knowledge, there was an acronym there, RFEP. What vulnerable population is that?
RFEP
was the acronym.
Right. So that is our, and Jen Sachs is going to help me if I mess this up, but that is our reclassified English learners.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Now, I know Trustee Count had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. Looking at those first three graphs there, it's interesting to look at where the increases and decreases were over the last 3 years. I noticed that the white non-Hispanic chronic attendance, or lack of attendance, chronic absentee numbers are actually quite low this year compared to the last 2 years. So that was interesting to see that they seem to be attending more during distance learning than they have in the past couple of years. But then the increases, the places where there have been ongoing increases, just kind of steady increases, the homeless is a concern, as well as the socioeconomical seems to be on a steady increase. It was 347 students, then 401 students, and now 503. So as well as I think the Hispanic students, it was not necessarily, there's a little bit of a drop this year from last year. But I think one thing that gets a little bit hidden by this portrayal of this graph, because it's in percentages, is the number of students that we're talking about. So I just wanted to kind of point out that though the Hispanic students looks like, oh, it's just 12.9%, it looks kind of small, that's actually 1,600 students that we're talking about. So that does give me pause and consider that perhaps those are some of the areas that we should be focusing on moving forward. would be the places where we've seen increases, but also where we see large number of students.
And I would just, I think it's important that we're not kidding ourselves, and that, this is the criteria set by the state, but, there are students who are logging on, but the difference between attendance, and in some ways it's easier for someone to log on and do that versus, I know Dr. Clark and the staff are continuing to look at engagement. And so I think we need to not kid ourselves that there hasn't been a real loss of engagement as well that corresponds with this, that there are even, when we're able to somewhat paper over things by showing attendance, and this is true, I think, for every school district in America, that they're having the same sort of challenge. And Dr. Clark or Ms. Sachs, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of my understanding of it and what I've heard from teachers and administrators.
And that, I think President Lawrence brings me to the question about the Ds or Fs. We show this in percentages and that there's been an increase, but my question would be, perhaps information for a future meeting is what are the actual numbers there? How many students are we talking about total that have either at least one or multiple Ds and Fs?
Thank you. We can definitely get that information. I'm just going to warn you that it's not going to be good, and it's something that we're very concerned with. So so thank you for bringing that up for those questions.
I have one last one. What grade level does because I know we suspended CAS. What grade level does iReady go up to? Is that fifth, sixth grade? That
Jennifer Sachs is going to respond to that.
Yes, good evening. It goes up to 8th grade, actually, and it's a comparison of the last 3 years of fall diagnostic data. So any student that did take the diagnostic, and it's kind of a different student group each of the years because our contract has been modified, those are the scores that are shown. If I can just add a little bit with the iReady, we're going to notice that actually we have a very strong percentage of students that actually look as if they've mastered, and they've actually done pretty darn well this fall. We have some very engaged parents and older siblings and individuals that don't want to see our children struggle. So as the teachers and the administrators have been looking at the data, it's also through the lens of needing this to be one of multiple measures to determine how the students have been succeeding, and not utilizing this for foregone conclusions on this is exactly where they are in their reading and their math. So this is a very important time for our secondary as well as our elementary teachers as they're starting to collect data for the report cards at the trimester break. And so they are diligently looking at other measurements in order to balance the picture on how our students are meeting grade level standards.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I did have a question about the AP student results. When a student took the AP test as a sophomore, were they counted once in that year, or when they took the test as a sophomore, a junior, and a senior, were they counted, if they had 6 AP classes, was it 6 in the senior year, or is it just, are they counted only in the year for that particular class?
May I answer, Dr. Clark?
Go right ahead. Yeah.
So if it's a sophomore at the 2017-18 and they had 1 AP class, they would count as a 10th grader in that year. And then as an 11th grader, if they had another class, they'd be counted as an orange bar in the 18-19 and then a gray bar for the 19-20 if they took an AP class that year. So it really does show exactly the students within the AP class within the year that they took it. So you may have a student that ends up being in all of the bars because that's what their schedule, that's what they were scheduled into, were the AP classes.
So then if a student did not take a class in their sophomore or senior year, then they're not indicated in those 2 years?
No, they are not.
It would be great to understand how many AP courses were completed by all those students in those 3 years, just because it's something to be proud of, like Dr. Clark was saying. Thank you.
Great.
President Lawrence?
Yep, I think we're ready to move forward. So thank you, Dr. Clark.
Okay.
and Max.
If I could have the technology department present the, okay. Next slide, please. So this is again from our plan that was presented in the summer, in July, August, and it really does show 5 phases of where we are now, which is on the far left, which is basically 100% distance learning. It shows the next phase is limited hybrid, and then the middle phase is full hybrid, and then the 4th phase over is in-person restrictions. So it's a little bit, more than full hybrid, and then we have in-person unlimited. So where we are now is a direct correlation to not only our county metrics, but also other trends that are taking place within the Bay Area, within California, and within what's going on nationally. So I know that, that there's, we all hear of reports of schools opening in Georgia and Florida and Texas and Montana and things of that nature, and I get it. However, as we look at the data from those states, their COVID, the rate of COVID being spread in those states is increasing at much higher levels than what California as a whole is increasing. So I'm not indicating that is solely what we're making our decision on, but we really are trying to be as fluid and flexible as possible as we're going through this process. So again, we are in the far left. We are in 100% distance learning. We made that, first of all, the board, voted to go in that direction, and then shortly thereafter, Governor Newsom put forward the order that all schools would be in distance learning, and we're still in distance learning. Now we are starting to have conversations and move to the next phase, but we're not there yet. And it's not from lack of planning. It's not from not being prepared. We are working each and every day to get to that point, but we're just not there yet. So hopefully as I go through this presentation, I can give, it'll be much clearer of where we are and what our priorities are going forward. Next slide, please. So this is, this is something that is on our website, and also I pulled this, last week from the Contra Costa County Health website, and this is the state metrics. So we have been in the purple tier for some time, and most recently we are in the red tier. There's still 2 more tiers. So purple there's substantial COVID throughout the county, and red is that COVID is still widespread. So just because we got the okay to start the process of hybrid learning, we still want to be cautious during this time, right? So again, I just wanted to provide this statewide metrics and give it some, where we are right now. So we are in red tier. Soon the county will hopefully move into the orange tier. There's been other counties throughout California that have gone from red back to purple, but we want to make sure that we're in a particular tier before we move forward too far, because there's going to have to be some actions that are going to be very difficult to reverse once we go, once we start in on these actions. So we're in the red tier, and we still have 2 more tiers to get to yellow. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown on how to interpret the, understanding our county status. And so, again, this presentation is posted, so those of you can go through it in much finer detail. Next slide, please. This was a letter that, although it's dated Friday, October 9th, it really took effect October 13th. So on October 13th, the very first day possible for schools to actually reopen without a waiver, that date was October 13th. So what that really did was that gave us, okay, there are no public schools in Contra Costa County that reopened on October 13th. So I know there's a lot of rhetoric out there that we're behind the 8 ball and we're not doing what other districts in our county are doing. There are no schools currently right now in Contra Costa County that are open, even though we were allowed to open starting on the 13th. Next slide, please. This is some data of our major cities where we have schools, and this is individual data. I fully understand that Martinez, we also have a small sliver of Martinez that is in our district. We have a very small sliver of unincorporated Lafayette, and we also have a small sliver of Pittsburgh. So I didn't add those because I felt that either way that would kind of skew our data. So you can look here at the positive case counts, cases last 14 days, the population, the cases per 100,000, and also the cases for the last 14 days per 100,000. So you can see that, our data is getting better, but there's still some areas like COVID is still present throughout our communities. And, just because you live in one community, COVID doesn't see borders, right? It spreads. So anyway, this is information for you all to peruse, and I have the website on this slide. Next slide, please. So this is a document that we have on our risk management page. However, I'm bringing it to the forefront, and I want to make sure that it's shared evenly with all of our stakeholders. But it really breaks down of what should I do if. And so if we can go to the next slide, it's actually broken down a little clearer. And so again, this says on the left column, what if, and then immediate actions, and then what type of communication will take place. And so we have this in place now. We are following these guidelines, and this does give directions on what happens if someone has symptoms, on what happens if a family member tests positive. If we go to the next slide, this breaks down what happens if a student or a staff member is positive for COVID. And it really does, highlight quarantine, testing, when can they return, who's going to communicate. All of these things are, the process is laid out in these documents. And again, it's available for everyone to study. Next slide, please. So what we're here to talk about tonight, really, and what I'm looking for from the board is just some direction. We're not going to take a vote. There's no voting tonight, but these are basically the 5 phases of reopening as in relation to the first slide that I shared. So all of these are sort of separate items, right? Each one of these items would need to be negotiated, and we would need to have a signed MOU with all 6 of our bargaining units in order for these to take place. But throughout the presentation, I'm going to break down each one of these to let us know exactly what this represents. So just real quickly, I just want to name them out so when I refer to them later, you have some sort of context. So we have legal testing and meetings. So when we can bring students on campus for either an IEP meeting or some special ed testing, those types of things. So that would be that first phase, right? And most districts in Contra Costa County are in this phase right here, where they're either they've already have a signed agreement, where they're bringing some students on campus, or they're working towards an agreement. The next is support groups. This is where some of our students who need extra support, I mean, we saw it from the chronic absentee list, and unfortunately, looking at chronic absentee rates, it really does identify our most at-risk population. If a student is chronically absent, the percentage of them being successful academically goes way, way down. And that goes across all student groups. However, usually our student groups, you know, kids who come from poverty, English learners, special education, you know, some of them are minority populations. Those are ones that typically have higher chronic rates. So developing pods or some sort of drop-in support systems would be under Roman numeral 2 support groups. And then there's another phase that's out there, and that we've been investigating, and we've been working on, and we've been developing, you know, plans for, is what would it look like if we just brought back our special education students? And so, you know, we have a plan for that, how that would look. And then next is, what would it look like to bring back elementary students and start slowly opening up our elementary schools? And then what would it look like to start opening up secondary schools? So for the elementary students and for the secondary students, we are talking about a hybrid model, about really working out the details of what that hybrid model would look like. And then eventually we want to get to a place where we have a full district reopening. All of these are separate, separate items, and they all need to be negotiated, and we need to be able to work out and come up with agreements with our employee groups and with our stakeholders on how this is going to look like. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on each group in the next slide. So can I have the next slide, please? So for testing and meetings, we would be looking at, this would be for special education students and for our English learners who are, you know, who have the least amount of English. So non-English speakers or our English learners who, you know, who have, you know, are newcomers, things of that nature. So when we're talking about testing and meetings, that's the population that we're referring to. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, the academic support groups, and I put some numbers here just to give us a gauge of how many students we are referring to. So again, this is if we set up some sort of you know, tutoring, social emotional support, but we would identify special education populations. We have 323 identified homeless, 237 foster youth. And now the last slide, that's all of our students who are limited English proficient. This doesn't break it down to the levels, but if we're looking at our most neediest group out of the limited English proficiency group, it would be about a fourth of the total that's there. So there's approximately close to 5,000 students. So we're looking at roughly 1,000 students who would be eligible for that support. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the way that support would look like, it would be academic and social emotional support. So whether it's counseling, whether it's, you know, we know a lot of our students are struggling in distance learning, and we know that, you know, we have psychologists and behaviorists and counselors on staff. We have teachers on staff. We have folks who could, you know, work with these students and offer them support as we're in between, you know, coming back in a hybrid model. And this would be voluntary for students. We'd hold these in flexible open spaces. You know, many of our schools have outdoor lunch eat areas. We have multi-purpose rooms. We have libraries. We have, you know, big rooms that are appropriate for us to create a distance learning space. So that's what the support group phase would look like. Next slide, please. And then if we were to start bringing back special education students, this would be the order in which we would bring those students back. We would bring back our intensive special day class students and our special ed preschool students. Next, we would go to moderate special day class students and our adult transition students. And then lastly, we would bring back our mild special day class students and our TKK students. And so that is what, if we were just to start bringing special ed students back onto our campus, this is how we have it planned out on how we would phase them in. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about how we would phase in elementary students. We would break down our elementary schools into 3 groups. And so they would be broken down into TK, K, and 1. And then the next group would be 2, 3, and the next group would be 4, 5. This is not the order in which we would necessarily bring them back on campus. Some may think it might be more practical to bring back 2nd and 3rd graders first, right, and bring them back in a hybrid distance learning. You know, hybrid is a hybrid between face-to-face instruction and distance learning. It's a hybrid of both. And would 2nd and 3rd graders, you know, be the target to kind of bring back first? Or would TK, K1 students be the ones we would want to target, or the 4th and 5th graders? But if we bring these students back in these small groups in phases, then we can assess our plans, we can assess how things are going, and we can move things forward. And so districts that have set a date to start this process, this is sort of the process that they're looking at. There isn't really a plan to bring all 3 of these groups back all at once, but to phase them in. And let me show you what that would look like on the next slide. Next slide, please. And so here go our elementary models, and we would have 3 different models. So I know there was a parent in the comments who talked about choice. So parents, you know, there's a choice here. So first of all, we have the hybrid model, which is stable groups. That means the groups of kids don't change, right? So you take a class of 28 kids, you break them in half, right? You have group A and you have group B. They stay with group A and group B stays with group B. Students would attend school 2 days a week. So group A would come on Monday and Tuesday, and group B would come on Thursday and Friday. The class would be reduced. We would have school for approximately 4 hours a day, 2 days a week. And when they're not at school, they're at home doing the assignments that they received during the face-to-face instruction. So that's one model that I'm going to go into in further detail. The next model is what we're currently doing, and that's distance learning, 100%. So we've already surveyed our parents, and roughly we have about 60% of our parents, you know, would come back if certain protocols were guaranteed and put in place, and we have about 40% of our parents who don't feel comfortable coming back at this point, and that's just a rough data. When we do get to this point, we will be asking parents to pick, right? And they're going to have to sign an agreement. Either we're going to do the hybrid model or we're going to continue on in distance learning. And then we also have a small home study program. Surprisingly, over the years, this program has been dwindling. So we started scaling back on staff there. But right now, it's been regenerated. So we actually had a meeting today and yesterday about we may be opening up some more slots because we do have a waiting list to get into this program. So those are our 3 elementary models. Now let me go to the next slide and show you what that would actually look like. So this is what it would look like. So you'd have group A, they would show up to school on Monday and show up approximately 9. Again, this is just, we would need to negotiate all of this. So this is just a model. So when people say, you know, what's the plan? So the plan is, in the summer, we had presented also a morning, afternoon model, but this is an AB Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model. And so we just found that with cleaning between morning or afternoon, and with bringing, you know, having kids cross over in one day at one site, we thought this model was safer and was more equitable, and parents could plan better just to be able to know, okay, my student's going to be in school on Monday and Tuesday, or my student's going to be in school Thursday and Friday. And so again, these are flexible. We're still looking for input on this, and we're still going to have to negotiate this. So group A, student shows up at 8:45. goes through whatever protocol we have worked out at that particular school of a designated entranceway, designated line place, designated, way to enter classrooms. They would go into class. They would receive instruction from their teacher for 4 hours that day. Of course, there would be a break in there. More than likely, their meals would be a take and go type thing, or there would be an opportunity for a small snack on campus. But you really do start opening up more opportunities for spread of the virus if we're serving lunch on campus, lunch or breakfast. So that's what students would do on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, everyone would have an opportunity to check in with their teachers through Zoom, get some help, get feedback, whatnot. Everyone would be on distance learning. And then on Thursday and Friday, Group A students would be at home doing their asynchronous work Thursday, Friday, while Group B is now attending. Now on the bottom here, there was a mistake on this chart. It says 9, 10, 10, 11, and then 12, 1, 1, 2. It would be identical to the top there. So it would be 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 1. So I'll just real quickly walk you through B. So if you're in Group B, you're in distance learning on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you come to school Thursday and Friday. This is a hybrid model. So when people say, bring our kids back to school, they're coming back in a hybrid model similar to this. And every district could be a little bit different, but for sake of this discussion, this is our hybrid model. Can I have the next slide, please? And it's the same in second and third grade. And next slide. And it's the same in fourth and fifth grade. Again, we could easily phase these groups in. I'm not recommending that we bring them all back at once, but it would be, I think it'd be very advantageous if we brought one of these groups in for a week, and then the next week we brought in the next group, and then the next week we brought in the next group, adjusting as we go. Next slide, please. Now, in secondary, it's much more confusing and difficult. However, we've been working on this for a long time, and here's our stab at how we would safely, in a hybrid model, reopen our secondary schools. Can I have the next slide? So at the top here, this says high school. However, it is applicable to both high school and middle school, but I just really want to specifically talk about what high school would look like. The cohort is unstable because if you have, let's just take ninth grade freshmen, right? So you have a ninth grade English 1 class, there's 30 kids in the class, they would be broken up into 2 groups. Now, after that class, they're going to go to math, and some may go to algebra, some might go to geometry, some may go somewhere else. So that is called an unstable cohort. So in order to limit the exposure to students and to staff and to make this as safe as possible, we've limited the number of periods that they would actually be on campus. So we have this unstable group. Students attend school in person 2 days a week. They either take their core classes or they take electives. So one train of thought would be students would show up Monday and Tuesday, they would take English, they would take math, they would take social studies, they would take science. That would be your core class. And then on a distance platform, they would continue taking a PE and Spanish, so to speak, right? So that's where it says students attend approximately 4 hours per day, 2 days a week. Students learn from home 3 days a week. The second part of that hybrid model is that students would be enrolled in 2 classes that were 100% distance learning. So they would be 100% online. So our high school students take 6 classes. 4 of them would be in person, 2 would be online. And then parents and students would also have a choice to just say, I want to stay on distance learning. I don't want to return to school. They would have that choice and that opportunity. Next slide, please.
Dr. Clark, could we, if we went back to that one, I just want to make sure that the public understands. So this is 2 plans, correct? This is high school hybrid, and just it's 3 columns, but it's 2.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Two columns for plan A and one column for plan B. Plan A is hybrid, plan B is distance. Absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what it would sort of look like in real time. So you have you have your student. He or she shows up to period 1, and I know I wrote core there. It doesn't have to be core. It could be electives. It's really going to depend on, one of the speakers brought this up earlier, that teachers who have a doctor's note or who choose not to return because of underlying health conditions or taking care of, parents or taking care of a child or whatnot, we have a process where they would be able to stay back. So we're gonna have some teachers that stay back and do distance learning, just as we're gonna have some students that stay back and do distance learning. However, for the teachers who are returning, we have period 1 set up. Let's just say it's ninth grader. Or no, let's say it's a senior. So a senior shows up, he or she's gonna take English 12, first period. Period 2, they're gonna go take pre-calc. Period 3, they're gonna go take physics. And period 4, they are going to take econ, right? So those are gonna be face-to-face with the teacher. Bell's gonna ring, they're gonna switch classes. So there is going to be some mixing in the hallways, but let's look at it like this. Let's say a high school has 1,000 students, right? We already polled our high school students, and 60% of our high school students said that they wanted to return, and 40% of our high school students said that they wanted to stay home. And so basically out of that 1,000, there's 600 now who are going to come to campus. So if we break that 600 down into A and B, now we're only bringing back 300 students at a time onto our high school campuses. So after period 1, the bell will ring, 300 students will switch classes. We can either group the classes near each other, or we can spread them out. We'll have that flexibility. And so they go to class for 3 periods. I know our classes are 45, 47 minutes. I just did this for organizational sakes. But so they would go for 4 periods. They would get all their assignments for the week. They would have 2 days of direct instruction from their teacher, and then they also have 2 online courses that they're also completing. We haven't determined if they would still jump on a Zoom call with those teachers on those days that they actually attend school. I think that's something that could be worked out, but Wednesday would be an all distance learning day, and Thursday and Friday, they would be working on their work from periods 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they would also be working on their 2 online classes. So that's how it would look in middle school. We can go to the next slide. It's the exact same slide. This is high school. However, we do have some courses on campus where students actually, need to come in, whether it's some of our CTE courses or whether it's, some of our science courses or things like that, PE even. Like these are courses that could be, at school that students need. But however, part of, and I totally 100% understand the frustration of families, because they wonder, why haven't we worked this out yet? So a teacher is going to have to make a declaration that they're either coming back or they're not. Well, if the auto shop teacher, has an underlying health, ailment, then he or she is not going to return. So auto shop is going to have to be online. However, hospitality class could be, that teacher may say, I'm coming back. And so again, that just shows the flexibility needed. And same with students. If the majority of the automotive students say we're not coming back, but the automotive teacher comes back, then who's going to be in those classes, or vice versa? So I just really want to highlight the complexities of all this, and all of this needs to be negotiated, and our teacher partners in this, they have ideas, they have input that they want to provide, and things like that. And as well as our students, we're definitely looking to get input from our students on this as well. Next slide, please. So we currently have with one of our employee groups, we have a memorandum of understanding is that students are not allowed on campus during distance learning. And so that's what we're currently working with right now. So the things that students can come on campus for is to pick up meals, to pick up their technology or to get support on their technology, to pick up their textbooks or pick up other school materials. They can come for legally required meetings. And the county health has permitted athletic and some extracurricular activities to happen on site. So at our high schools, you know, we do have conditioning taking place, you know, at all of our high schools. You know, extracurricular would be like band. You know, I know bands are out there practicing. You know, they have a whole myriad of protocols that they have to follow in terms of social distancing, in terms of pods and cohorts and things of that nature. So so this is our current MOU. So we're currently working with some of our employee groups to adjust this so that we can start, you know, looking at bringing some of the students back in the phases that I presented to you earlier. But I just wanted to put this MOU out there, and all of our MOUs are posted on our COVID page on the district website. Next slide, please. So what we're currently doing at our schools is, you know, and we've been setting up for this for some time. So if you go into any of our school offices, there's hand sanitizer throughout the office. There are plexiglass shields up between the public and the office managers. There are sign-in sheets for individuals who come in to passively assess their health. So they sign a sheet saying, I don't have a fever and I'm not feeling sick, right? So we have that set up in every last one of our offices. That is there, that's been there for some time. But now we're starting to work in our classrooms. We're starting to separate out desks. We're starting to put down the social distancing 6 feet apart. We're starting to put those markers down throughout our campuses. You know, we're ensuring that we have sanitizer throughout our campuses for students. We're making sure that all of our sinks are working, that the soap is filled up. All of that stuff is in the process of getting ready to go, right? And again, we didn't know when we were going to move off the tier, so it wasn't like, you know, there's a reason to have this stuff set up in, you know, August when we know students are coming onto our campus. All of our PPE equipment has been delivered to the schools. It hasn't been distributed out to the classrooms because we don't know which classrooms we're going to be using and which classrooms we're not going to be using. So we have all the PPE equipment is secured. Can I have the next slide, please? So the safety measures, just that we can, you know, we can just scratch this off the list that these things are going to happen. So masks are going to be mandatory for everybody, right? And parents are going to have to sign an agreement that their student will wear a mask unless there's medical conditions. And if they don't wear a mask, they're going to be sent home or they're not going to be allowed to enroll. So that's going to be the case. And the same is going to be with our staff. We have to wear masks. We're going to have both passive and active screening. So we haven't worked out, again, who is going to, like, if we are going to do active screening, who's going to actually take the temperature of the kids? Is it going to be, you know, do we really want all of our kids lined up in one area getting their temperatures taken? Or do we want to, after classes started, do we want to go through and check temperatures? Or are we going to trust our parents to take their child's temperature before they leave home and you know, do that way? That's the difference between passive and active screening. But we will be doing screening. Social distancing. The reason why we can only bring back 14 kids in a class or 16 kids or 12 kids is so we can social distance. So that's why there's going to be reduced numbers of students in classrooms, and it's going to be why we're going to have to space our kids out, our students out in class. We're going to have hand washing and hand sanitizers available throughout the campus. I'm not saying that there's going to be the portable hand washing stations everywhere, but where we don't have sinks and water, we're going to have hand sanitizer. And where we do have sinks and water, we're going to have soap, and we're going to make sure that that's kept up regularly. We are, we are working on, first of all, testing is available for anyone in Contra Costa County, but we're actually, working to develop contracts. We're trying to do this on a county level so that the county is ensuring that they will test all of our staff, but we're not quite there yet with our county. But even if the county doesn't do it, then as a district, we will take on this responsibility ourselves, and we'll make sure that our staffs are tested at least, once every other month. So that's a commitment that we're making, but there's really no point in us signing that contract now and starting that when we don't have staff, all of our staffs back on campus. Next slide, please. We're currently preparing our school sites. So our administrators are working with site custodians to place the 6 feet markers throughout campus. Some classrooms, need to be reconfigured for social distancing. The PPE equipment is out at every school. It hasn't been distributed to the classrooms because I've already touched upon that. And we're highlighting our maps so that when we do invite our students back, then we will have, a safety plan for each school that lays out the protocols and shows where the students are going to be entering and where they're going to be exiting. Why it's so important to do a phased approach is because in these plans, when there's no students around, we might come up with the best idea that all students should enter in this particular area. But then in reality, when we actually have kids there and staff there, it may not be appropriate. So we may need to adjust. So if we're phasing it in, then we can work through those types of things. I'm almost done. I got 2 more slides. Next slide, please. So actually, this is the last slide. So what we're looking for, I know the trustees are going to have lots of questions and lots of discussion. So I'm going to stop after this slide. But what we want to identify, and this is essentially what the other districts have done. So I used to work for Liberty, so I know what Liberty's done. Liberty set a date as January 19th that they're going to start the process. Liberty's in the same places we are right now, right? I know that San Ramon has said that they're going to start this, full reopening on January 5th. Same places as where we are now, and so on and so on. I have heard that Lafayette and Byron have worked out agreements with their employees, and over the next couple of weeks, they're going to start bringing students back. So what we're looking at, what we'd like is does the board want us to focus on looking at opening up pods or support groups on our campus, at bringing in students who have D's and F's, or would the board want us to focus on to put all of our energy and efforts to working on the hybrid, on bringing our kids back in phases, all students at different phases as I've laid out. And I could, if it's the board's wish, I could present a recommendation at Monday's meeting so that it's something official that we would vote on. I could do that. And I want to assure the board and the public and our labor partners that the district is going to continue to work with our labor partners to make sure that that things are safe, that they're equitable, and that we're setting everyone up for success. We do not want to get everyone excited and to go one direction and then have to move back. We fully understand that it may not feel like it, but it is, almost the end of October, and it may be 90 degrees out, but we're heading into winter someday. Flu season is going to hit. Thanksgiving's going to happen. The winter holidays are going to take place, and so families are going to travel and things of that nature. And so we want to take all that in consideration. And so, so I really just want to open up a discussion with the board, and hopefully, the board can provide some guidance or some direction to myself and staff so that we can continue on with this process that has really been nonstop since March of last year. So with that, President Lawrence, thank you for your patience and attention during this presentation. And technology, we might as well leave this. We may need to refer back to the presentation at some point. So turn it over to you, President Lawrence.
Great, thank you, Dr. Clark. I will start and just open it up. So board members, questions, feedback, thoughts? Who'd like to go first?
I would like to reiterate what Dr. Clark has said, that we've really been working on this since March. From the time we had to close the schools, it's always been foremost in our minds, how do we safely bring back our children and our families? I'm not a particularly sentimental person, as you guys know, but I am taken aback when I think of over 200,000 people being dead. This is not your normal virus. They don't know right now if you really are immune or not immune, or how long that immunity lasts. People are now discovering that actually thought they had a really mild case and just needed to take some Tylenol and rest, that they're getting glaucoma or diabetes or strokes or heart attacks left over from this disease. And we don't know. And we're being told, prepare for a bad winter. So I don't want to be flip about it and say, oh, you know, here we are, we're in this position, we should make these tough decisions and just, you know, roll with the dice. The first time a staff or a child dies because they came back and got it on our sites, it will be a knife through my heart. So this is not something to take lightly. Having said that, if I had to make decisions for myself, that's easy. I know what I would do with my families, but we're in the position of trying to make decisions. Other families are going to have to trust us and roll with it. So I like the idea of starting slow. I personally, if I ran the world, wouldn't do anything about till the middle of January, because I am convinced that we are going to see upticks with the holiday season. In the meantime, if our administrators think there's a safe way to start serving some of our homeless, our foster, and our special ed students that really need to have some one-on-one, and doing that in a pod kind of situation, I could support that. And I think we're just going to have to realize, you know, even if we set a date for January 19th, say randomly, that might have to change when we get nearer to it. Or we might find we open and things are going much better than we anticipated, and we can maybe move a little faster. As far as specifics to the presentation, the only thing I would look at differently, and again, our staff can look at it and make their decision, is I'm more comfortable with the students in the high schools being stable and the teachers moving rather than the kids all moving together. And if for whatever reason that can't happen, then I would like to see them spread out in groups where there's only like 50 to 100 kids moving together in different parts of the campus. So it's not like all 300 kids on the campus are all together during passing time. And that's about all I have for specifics at this time, because I think as the discussions continue, new things are going to keep popping up and we're going to have more and more questions. So I will stop and let another board member share their thoughts.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Mason.
I have,
please.
I have a couple of things. First of all, thank you for your presentation, Dr. Clark. One question that I have, you mentioned about the conversations that we've been having with labor groups. So I wanted to know what kind of negotiations have been set with the union regarding teachers returning to school. I saw a public comment about how a teacher was very worried she was going to have to request a medical leave. So what has been delineated there? Completely on a volunteer basis? Can teachers, you know, you mentioned that declaration, so just a little bit more clarity there.
So first of all, thank you for the question, and I can't necessarily share things about negotiations in a public meeting, because then I'm basically negotiating in public, and that's not, you know, that's not a fair practice. However, what I will share is that two very valid points to what you bring up, and I think I can get to your answer, is that not only Governor Newsom, but also the feds put out you know, federal leave policy on COVID. So if you are of an age, if you have an underlying health condition, then you can get a doctor's note and you can submit that, and you can automatically be excused from having to return back to face instruction. So there is law, and there is FMLA, you know, legislation that's out there that protects our our employees in that way. And then second, I know that, that the board has really made a commitment to, in giving me direction to work with employees, that if we have teachers that can't return because of whatever reason may not be necessarily highlighted in the laws, that they want us to work with them, and we will. Now I do want to touch, we do have some employees in our district where it's just not feasible for them to work from home, right? And maybe in a pinch, and maybe for a week or something, or maybe, if we were completely shut down, we would have to make do. But like, for example, someone who maintains our lawns and landscape, they can't do that work from home. Or someone who works in an office who has to greet folks and do those types of things, they can't work from home. So again, we are looking at those on an individualized basis now, but we do have negotiation sessions set up, and we have been negotiating with several of our employee groups during this process, and we do have large chunks of time either on the books or partly on the books for the next several weeks to be able to deal with this.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Cound, Ms. Mayo, Ms. Durkee?
Well, you're asking if we have questions.
Loaded question.
Yeah, I know. I think you're looking for opinion, perhaps, or viewpoint, like Mrs. Mason stepped out there for us.
Whatever your pleasure. Whatever your pleasure.
Well, I still am concerned that we need to go slow and that we need to be methodical. I do believe that there may be some room to look at the legal testing and the support groups and possibly some of the special education populations. I, like Ms. Mason, am concerned about the regular flu. There's 6 weeks until the Christmas holiday. And then if we look at January 1st and you want to throw in 14 days for isolation after that January 1st holiday, for me, the safest date to possibly look at could be January 18th or 19th. And I realize that our families who want their students in classrooms may not be looking at it with that particular lens. I do believe that we have been working and know that we have been working in regards to the protocols around safety. And my one thought for the secondary students, instead of having the students go to 6 classes each day, 4 are in person and 2 are virtual, why not do both periods on day 1 so that you're doing 2 classes in person and then 1 virtual class in the afternoon. That eliminates the passing problem, an additional contact time. I also know that it's challenging to teach for 2 hours or whatever the time is allotted for that time. And it's also sometimes hard to sit still that long. So perhaps our students would do better with the physical activity of changing classes. Right now, those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo.
I'll go with comments as well. I think I guess I just want to underscore some of the things I heard in Dr. Clark's presentation. As other board members have pointed out, I appreciate pointing out that there has been a plan and that work has been being done. And, you know, I think I get really focused on the process as much as anything in terms of, you know, trying to come to conclusions or decisions, but also, you know, what's the process we're all going through as our group here, and then all the other stakeholder groups. And so I also appreciated the public comment that acknowledged, you know, that there is a range of feelings and opinions about this. Everyone is shaped by their own life experience. And some of that has to do with, well, has to do with many variables that go into someone's life experience, including age. And I promised myself I wouldn't go off on this, so I won't. But I keep thinking a lot about both my parents were born in 1918, which was the last, you know, pandemic this country, and I just think about all the things that generation had to deal with, and I think they just learned something about the sacrifice for the good of all that one has to do or families have to do. And I think our generation, starting with my generation and younger, has just not had to deal with anything like this before, so it's clearly complicated and hard. So I recognize that, and I just keep hoping that everyone can more and more, again, the comment was listening to other comments made me realize that we don't all feel the same way and we don't all think the same way. So, you know, in my own little research, I was kind of fascinated by what's, you know, we call the California Health Equity Matrix, because I'm now, what I don't know is whether that's done anywhere else in the country. I think it's an impressive thing that California is doing, that's acknowledging or recognizing that, you know, there really isn't one number that totally represents a whole county. You know, we're in sections in a county as well. And so just how we talk about equity, that if that metrics actually factors in, you know, there are parts of your county that are not doing well. And sort of to Dr. Clark's point, showing the cities that make up our school district, you know, they're not all the same. So this metrics actually, it's a way to sort of put it in a data form, takes that into account. So I thought that was really fascinating. You know, thanks to, you know, great, I think, I don't know if it's too political, but, you know, I think the strong leadership we've had in California. California is stable. It's one of the few states that is stable, but we're not downward trending. And, you know, we all hear the same news probably. And so we know that most of the country is going up again. You know, again, maybe some of it is just their turn, or some of it is, you know, again, flu, or, you know, what other variables that are coming into play. And I think we've done a decent job in California, and we just want to continue to do that. But we shut down. You know, we did some really, I think, effective strategies, and I think we need to be cognizant of that got us to this stable point, but we don't want to reverse that trend. I really like the tiered idea, and I think to point that was already made is this has been a major difficult experiment from day one. And, you know, just like anything, you learn some things, you make mistakes, you have to back up. And so, and the less we have to back up, the better for everybody involved. And so many of us had the opportunity to be mentored by the gentleman that always said you have to go slow to go fast. And so I think that definitely applies here. I appreciated hearing, you know, putting us in the context of other districts in Contra Costa County, that no one is really, you know, anywhere that far different from what we're dealing with or where we are in this county. So I guess in terms of a specific, the phase-in approach, you know, whether we start phasing in now, I hear the cautions about, you know, what these next 6 to 12 weeks look like, and do we want to put anybody at risk in that time? You know, we do have to get people on board, and so that takes time, and maybe it's worth it to take the time to just have a more successful step one or phase one or whatever we do. So so I just want to say, you know, to Dr. Clark, I appreciate you taking the initiative to share all those perspectives. You know, you're bringing lots to your presentations around, you know, again, where we are and where Mount Diablo fits in the bigger picture in Contra Costa County. And because again, there's a lot of chatter out there, just like with any issue, and we just want the facts and the truth to be heard and to get through. So I think that was particularly helpful. Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Durkee. Ms. Cowan?
All right. Some fantastic comments here, I think. Let's see. looking at what I think maybe everybody has said so far is it sounds like we're really in alignment and in agreement with the priority order that you've laid out here, the Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, looking at how can we really serve these students safely. So homeless, foster, special ed, as well as I think I would like to see a real focus on the students who have been shown to be not successful with distance learning, to really reach out to those students and families to find out what can be done. Is bringing them to the school site in person one of the solutions that we should be looking at, or are there other interventions? What exactly are the roadblocks that those students are facing, so that we know how to address that problem? In the memorandum of understanding that you had on that last slide, not the last slide, but the memorandum of understanding slide, it talks about how the county health permitted athletic or extracurricular activities or on-site childcare programs. One thing that I would be really interested in is where our after-school program fits into that. Because I think so far it's its own program separate from the school, but it is something that we as a school district have grant funding to provide. It is fully paid for and staffed. And so far they've been, providing Zoom enrichment and make and take projects. But my question would be, can they, under that county health permitted activity or on-site childcare programs, can we consider opening them back up? Because I know they serve our Title I schools and could be providing some of those interventions that we're looking at, whether it's tutoring, homework help, just some on-site supervision. So I would be really interested in finding out more about that. And then you asked about, for board direction on proposed timelines as well. And I think maybe one of the things that could happen on Monday would be for you to bring back a couple of different choices for us to look at and consider in terms of timeline. I would look at that with an eye towards bringing back, items 1, 2, and 3 as soon as possible. I have seen, I know some of our other districts are starting with piloting SDC, and I know Walnut Creek School District just started that this week. I've heard some good news about it. It appears to be going well. There's a couple of things, if we're going to consider that, to maybe look at as far as what Walnut Creek did that seem to be some positive things. They have their nurses sent out a video to parents, telling them what to expect and how this is all going to work, and as well as the behaviorists, I guess, sent out a what to expect kind of message out to families. And I think it sounds like between those two things, it's a very small group of students. Even out of their total SDC population, only half opted to return. So it really is, small groups of students, but it appears to be, so far, appears to be feasible. So I would really like for us to look at, we've been hearing a lot from our special needs families, how quickly can we get that into place? I've also been hearing about a couple of places that have done trial runs, just so even before bringing back a whole hybrid model or anything like that, trying out some of the things that we're talking about. So having the student actually set up in the classroom, having the teacher set up in the classroom with a small group of students, spacing it out and actually teaching that class. And then if we're looking at the idea of, say, Zoom, students still zooming in during that time, any of those things that come up that as ideas or models that we're looking at, to actually do a trial run so we can see, firsthand what that's going to look like. I think that's the kind of thing that might also make people feel more comfortable with the cleaning protocols as well, and the sort of entrance and exits. If we get a chance to kind of practice and walk through to see what it's really going to look like. with a test group, then people may feel more comfortable. It sounds like there's still some confusion about our protocols, whether it's cleaning protocols or what are our custodians doing, or what is the protocol of what a family is supposed to do at home before they come. That is an area that, you know, as some other school districts are a little bit slightly ahead of us, there are some really great infographic kind of charts out there that I think would be great for us to use and gather those all in one place. Similar to what you have in your presentation that was, I really liked that one that describes the different scenarios, all on that chart with the what the actions are taken and then what communication. I think that's fantastic. I would love to see more of that sort of thing, the kind of one-page infographic chart for each of the questions that are in mind. And then another question as far as preparedness that I didn't hear, I did see, you know, as you're describing, are the sites ready? And the spacing and the 6-foot marks on the ground and the plexiglass, sounds like all of that is going well. What I have not heard clearly is the ventilation piece at each of our sites. Where are we in that? How many of our air filters have been upgraded to the MERV 13? And how often are those being changed? What's the protocol for that? So I think that's a piece that could be added here as well. And I think the other thing that I'm thinking about is beyond those first 3 tiers, we've got elementary and secondary on the list. And I understand go slow to go fast and be really thoughtful about this, but I'm also mindful of our elementary school families that are really struggling with this distance learning. It's really, really hard when you're in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, to really be on a Zoom call, getting much of anything effectively done. So I think what I would perhaps like to see is, what I'm hearing you say that each of the sites has a plan, right? In terms of the site being ready. So what if in the next phase here, we have each of the sites take that to the next level and figure out what is the feasibility on their school site, and involving more than just the leadership at the site. I would think maybe the site council could be a good place for this, the site council, but then also include the custodian and also include front office staff. Maybe that would be the team. And I could picture each site meeting like that and then using the checklist that you've already created and kind of being the team that's going to monitor that. Have we met all the items on the checklist? And then what is a possible schedule or phase in that could happen at this particular site? As well as then at that level, there could be an analysis of those high needs students, the absentees, Ds and Fs, students that are 2 and 3 grade levels behind in their learning, and what is that school site's strategy, where they really look at how many of those students do we have here at the school site, and what do we propose to do about that. And some school sites might need some more assistance than others from the district if they have a high concentration of those things. And then lastly, I would say the thing that I am concerned about is if we do move forward with any of these levels and we have students on our campuses, what is our plan for if cases skyrocket again? Do we have a like a metric of at what point we reverse and go back to full distance learning? Because that, I think, is the fear that a lot of people have. Once we start to get cases on our campuses, what are we going to do to keep them safe?
I have a couple more questions. I just want to preface it by saying something that Trustee Cowan was saying that is really, really important, especially at the Northgate site, is the fact that we have just terrible ventilation. Northgate particularly, I mean, I'm speaking anecdotally, completely indoors. And I know we're not looking at returning high school students anytime soon. We're pretty self-sufficient. I would say the only population that is at risk there, IEPs, 504s, ELLs, potentially. But we have very poor ventilation, and not quite sure how it looks like in other schools, school sites. There was a comment that was talking about YV ventilation and how ventilation at Ignacio Valley is very poor as well. So that is just something very, very important that I wanted to highlight. Another question that I have regarding, because right now we're looking at only, right, those vulnerable populations, potentially K through third graders. I have a question about the hybrid plan. So it looks like right now, when I was just looking at the slide, when the TK through 1, if group A is attending in person 2 days a week, and then they do distance learning the other 2 days, so they get 4 days of learning, those students who have chosen only distance learning, what are they doing those first 2 days when their teachers are at school? Are they being taught? Are they like also on the screen? Is the teacher recording the lecture? What does that look like?
So those students would be working independently on the assignments that they received on Monday and Tuesday when they were at school, and doing their online 2 classes.
I'm sorry, were you asking about the 100% distance learning?
Yeah, those students, the parents who have chosen 100% distance.
So the 100% distance learning would just continue on what you're doing right now. You wouldn't change what you were doing. Your teachers may change because some of them may choose to come back, right? But your experience is going to be the exact same experience if you choose to stay in 100% distance learning throughout the year.
So the teacher, there would be students, the teacher would be teaching in the classroom, and there would be students in the classroom as well, and then other students on a Zoom call? No. Okay.
If the teachers are going to commit to either 100% distance learning or face-to-face instruction.
Okay.
So
there'll be 2 different distance learnings going on. One will be the one that's part of the hybrid, and a separate class that's like it is now. So it's not overlap.
But see, that's where I think there are so many questions at the high school level, is that how is that possible with, like, pre-COVID? It's hard for students to get all the classes that they need or desire out of their 4-year plan, right? And so if you have, an Algebra 2 class or something like that, and some of those students are doing distance learning and others are doing the in-person, now you need 2 teachers for that class, whereas you only had 1 before, right? So there's just so much, I think, in high school in terms of the scheduling and whether students are really going to be able to get their classes that they currently are in, that are year-long classes. Are they going to be able to finish out their class plan? So that to me, I feel like with high schools, and also given that high school is an age group that does transmit COVID as much as adults do. For me, I feel like high schools, we need to focus on those small groups opportunities, whether it's the, after school or at certain times throughout the day, where there can be the social interactions, but also the hands-on learning. Let's say you have a robotics club, or you have a chemistry lab, certain hands-on, or a lot of the career tech that we have in our schools, whether it's, the construction management or the auto shop or wood shop, right? If you focused on only those hands-on opportunities, maybe that would make this whole schedule thing a little bit less complicated.
Yeah, and I was also thinking about, also at the elementary level, my sister is in 5th grade, and I was thinking sometimes there are 3 teachers for 1 grade level. Say one of them issued a declaration saying I can't return to school. It's going to be all distance learning. I'm just thinking, like, since there's limited amount of teachers in each grade level, and that's Walnut Acres, that it's completely different at other schools that potentially have less teachers, potentially rotating subs. So that's also what I was thinking of in terms of that question. And then the other thing that I just wanted to remark upon, was talking to other student board members from across the state. I was talking to the one from San Diego Unified School District, obviously farther away. However, they have been I think they've been in the red tier for a while. What he suggested, what their board has been talking about is similar to this conversation right now, and appointment-based learning for those who are most vulnerable. I do not think we are in any capacity at the high school level, at the middle school level, prepared, ready to return to school, just simply because we transmit COVID at a high rate. We have narrow halls. So focusing on those vulnerable populations, and specifically TK through third graders, but also keeping in mind how if we get English language learners, or those who have D's and F's back at schools like Northgate, how are we going to properly address the fact that we have no windows at Northgate. So that's one other thing. And then one question that I had was in regards to, I got a survey a couple weeks back issued. I don't know what group it was issued to, if it was just high school students. I was wondering if you had kind of the results of that survey. Maybe it was talked about in another board meeting and I just missed it. But it was a question about distance learning. It was when we started moving into the red tier. And it was asking what we supported, and that was to high school students. Was that administered at the elementary level? And no, okay. I didn't think so. But from what you got from high school students, maybe middle school students, what were kind of the results there? Not talking about returning high school students, but I'm just curious as to what.
So first of all, all the results are on the last study session agenda. You can go there now and pop them up. I can look them up now and start responding to that. But to answer your question, it was only given to high school students. It was not given to middle school students or any other students. So again, I don't want to just start going off of memory on the data, but I did present that data, and it is posted on our agenda. I asked that it be moved to the website, but it didn't get moved, but it is on the agenda. So I can email it to you, but it is posted on our last agenda for the study session.
President Lawrence, I have a question.
Yes.
Didn't we have a presentation not that many meetings ago about the ventilation? And I thought they said it had been upgraded at all the schools. I thought Melanie gave us a presentation.
So I mean, there's been about 20 questions here, so I'm not, I wasn't sure when to pop in, but I will address the ventilations. Is HVAC filters are changed 4 times a year. MARV 10 filters will be replaced out of sequence due to the fires in October, and the MERV 13 filters are on order. They haven't come in yet, but they all will be replaced in Northgate and everywhere else by the end of November.
Were there any other, we threw out quite a few things. Were there other questions that folks wanted to raise with Dr. Clark, or further comments?
We were waiting for your comments. I almost called you Dr. Lawrence, President Lawrence.
So, I think, first, I think it's been a good discussion. Some of the things that I look at, and one I had a question on in terms of, so Dr. Clark, could we schedule for at Monday's meeting as part of the presentation? I think one of the questions, and you've touched on it some, is around the funding, the federal funding we've received and kind of how that's been allocated. We've touched on it at previous meetings in regards to the budget, but the allocation of those funds certainly towards, we know that they've been used towards Chromebooks, hotspots, the PPE, and things like that. But if we could get a broader sense of that, I think that would be useful. I certainly agree. There's a lot to cover. One of the things I think we should look at doing, because I think the math, there's so much complexity with putting this together. And I think there will be many families who might fall in a category of, I'd be open to having my child go back in hybrid, but I could also have my child stay in distance learning because, and we may have teachers and staff who fall in that same category, because that type of flexibility will allow us to perhaps move some things around, because we're not going to have a perfect solution for everyone. And so I would just suggest, as we look at surveying people, that they could say, I want to go back, I want to stay in distance learning. And then we might have some people who would say, hey, I'm flexible between the two. And we could look at that. So that was one thing. I think that we also, the way this will work is, I think Ms. Mason said it, and other board members, that there are very real challenges to this. And this is, when you look at how many people have died, it is very real. We are seeing cases go up. We are seeing, even in California, counties that are moving backwards on the system. We are seeing in the United States, we're seeing in Europe that people are rolling back, and I think that's the last thing we want. And so we need to take it very, very seriously. I think balancing that is the fact that, one, we know the learning loss, the emotional loss is very real for our students. And I think I've heard each board member at one point articulate, especially for our English language learners and our special ed and our youngest elementary students, that this is especially challenging. And I think, from my perspective, that's where we need to focus our first efforts. And so, I've made the statement that there's going to be a balance, and it means maybe not everyone's coming back. I certainly hope that we have the ability, anyone who wants to come back could come back, but I think we have to take this in steps. And for me, the priority is around those students. I do think we're also seeing data from, the CDC, from California State, that transmission, and we're seeing it in daycares and areas in places in our area that have had students back, that have had children back, that have done so successfully. But I think we've seen they've taken safety very seriously. It has to be a joint effort. And this is even things like, when we talk about the parents who might end up carpooling because they're taking several students. If a parent is sick, if they have a temperature, well, if they still participate in the carpool and take people because it'd be inconvenient not to, and then that parent tests positive for COVID. And these are things that are happening today in our community. And that undermines our efforts, and it makes it much more difficult. I think we have to be very transparent with our community and with our staff. That's around the cases that do occur. And that's also around things like, I think we have to own that at our sites historically, cleaning has been a challenge. We have heard incidents where our sites are not where we want them to be. It's part of why this board, when we were presented by our previous superintendent in the spring with having drastic cuts to our janitorial staff, the board said no, because we knew we are going to need, if anything, more custodians and more supplies in order to safely reopen our sites. And I think we have to have a very clear mechanism for teachers and for staff and for students to be able to say, I'm in a classroom and it doesn't feel safe, and that we have a way to quickly address that. And so I'm confident that Dr. Clark would put that in place. And, we are seeing, and I think this was touched on, that high school students seem to be more like college students and young adults in terms of the transmission. Our younger students seem to not be as likely to contract or transmit, although, we're still learning every day. What I know is that we want to maintain safety, but at the same time, We have families who are desperate to go back. We have students who are desperate to go back. And we have teachers and staff who are desperate to help them, who want to help them. And so for me, I think that we, on Monday night, our board needs to provide direction. This, I think it was a point well taken that even in districts where they've announced a return and things like that, they are still in the process of negotiating with their bargaining units, and that can set things back, that can change things, they can go in a different direction. But I believe that our board needs to take the step of saying, here's the direction that we are looking to go. I would like to see us, for those first couple of groups that Dr. Clark laid out, I would like to see us return those students as quickly as possible. I would like to see us set a timeline for the elementary students that I think I heard a general consensus, and please correct me, but it seemed like a idea of looking at a January start date. I think I heard from the 5th through like the 19th or something in there as a possible start date for elementary. And I would want to continue to look at middle and high school, and that I think we need to have a standard uniform type option for elementary, in part because I think it's more swappable. And what I mean by that is with Ms. Alas mentioned, what happens if you have 3 teachers in a grade and one of them wants to go back? Well, what if all 3 of them say, I don't want to go back? What happens to the students at that school who do? Well, do you have a situation where you might have those students paired up with another school so that they actually do have the option to go back and that sort of thing? And I think we're more likely to be able to do that at the elementary level and have a focus on that. For middle and high school, I think that there are some options around a less uniform return, but that would help address some of the needs that were spoken to. And if, Dr. Clark, if you and staff come back and say, no, we're confident at the middle and high school level that we can return January 5th, then I would certainly be open to that. But otherwise, my priority remains elementary students as well as the ones that we've identified. I think that we need to, in conjunction with our bargaining units, we need to get those students who are most in need back safely, first and foremost, but I think we need to do it as expeditiously as possible, as quickly as possible. And then I think we need to have a target start date for our elementary students so our families can know and plan for that, and then go from there. So that's my perspective on it.
Good. I would like to.
Was that?
Oh,
I was just going to say, back to you.
No, I would like to say a few things. So first of all, I really appreciate this discussion because, these are the things that, that I stay up each night thinking about, and that we work as a team together all day long, really trying to address. And this is a very complicated matter. My heart, and I'm just saying this as sincerely as possible, is my heart breaks to those families who are unable to come back to school. And so that's basically all families. And I know that we've spent the majority of our time talking about, our special ed population and homeless and foster youth, and I get that. And COVID has done, more damage to those families than any others. And I think that's been proven on a national level. However, there has been trauma and loss for all of our families, and everyone, is upset about our current situation. So, I continue to get emails from some, and it's just a small portion, but where they're just, do your job, open up our schools, bring them back, and it's just not helpful. And it's not, it's not in reality, in a lot of issues. One reason why we have to move slow is because once we decide to bring people back, what student trustee Alas brought up, I brought that to the board, weeks ago, is that basically you're going to blow up our schedule right, and blow up our class list, and we're basically going to start over. And so we have some very unique schools here, some small schools where, you know, our teachers have formed great relationships with families, and there's been, you know, sisters and brothers who've had the same teacher, the same kindergarten teacher. And the reality is that teacher may not come back. And so your student is now going to be in a different teacher's class, right? And that's the reality. And once we go down that path, we're not coming back, right? And I mean, so once we tear down the schedule, we're not going to be able to rebuild it and put it back together in the old way that it was happened. So this is, once we cross a particular line and we say, yes, we're doing this. So with that said, we've already put out multiple surveys to our community. I don't want to over survey our community. Not only are we putting out surveys, you know, our employee groups are putting out surveys to their members. You know, we have parents on their own who are doing their own surveys. And so at some point, parents and staff and students are going to have to sign their name on the line and saying, I am committing to this. And it's almost, until they commit to this, then we can't go forward. But they're not going, and I'm not blaming them, but they're not going to commit until every little detail is worked out. And the details can't get worked out until they commit. And so we're in this vicious cycle, and it is extremely difficult. But I just want to acknowledge the you know, the difficulty that this has on everyone. I also want to say that our unions, you know, throughout the state are getting a bad rap. And our unions here in Mount Diablo, they are all willing to sit down with us and to work this out. And we have been trying. It's been slow, and it's slow going. It's difficult work, but there's no one to blame here. That's the point I'm trying to make, is there is no finger pointing. And I guess if the finger needs to be pointed, it can be pointed at me because I sit in the chair, and I'm okay with that. But this is difficult, and it's an individual process for everyone. Everyone's needs and situations are different, and they're going to react different to this situation. We will continue to work on this. There's not one question that was asked of me tonight that I don't have a response to, but you just may not like the answer, because the answer is going to create more questions and more things, and you know, and so our commitment is to get our students back to school face to face with the teacher. We understand that is the best thing for our students. However, we have to do that in a safe and you know, in an appropriate manner, and we will exhaust all resources to be able to do that. However, we have to move slow in order to move fast. So there's already a metrics in place. It's already, I mean, and part of the frustrating part is that a lot of these guidelines came out in the summer, you know, came out in spring actually, and they're still very appropriate today. So there's been a metric set up of when we would close schools, right? That's already been established, you know, how many cases, you know, and it's like, you know, 25% of your students in the school, you know, come down with COVID, and then it's time to shut it down. However, that may not be appropriate for our community. It may be once 10 kids come down with it, or once 5 kids come down with it. So again, there's all these guidelines already in place, but we're all left to kind of figure this out on our own. And nothing that we say is going to please everyone, because everyone has responded differently to this global pandemic. So I will bring forward a recommendation on Monday about a target date for reopening, and I think it would really give our parents some peace of mind if they had a date in mind. And again, I don't have a problem with setting a date, but I just really want to be realistic. I don't want to give a family or a student false hope and then have situations that are beyond our control make us have to go back on what we've committed to do. So we will come forward with the recommendation. I've heard loud and clear about the about how we want to target particular groups to be able to return to get support, because we understand that. But quite frankly, all of our students need support, right? In one form or another. Every last one of them needs support. So really, what does that look like? And there's not a one size fits all approach. We're going to post our agenda sometime tomorrow for our Monday board meeting. We have a lot of stuff on our on our board meeting coming up, but I would just still encourage the trustees to send your questions and concerns to me, and I will work with staff to get you all the information that you need to make a well-informed decision on our reopening process. And it is a process. And but I'm just very thankful that we've been able to spend the last 2 hours talking about this, and hearing from some of our stakeholders, hearing from the trustees, hearing from our new trustee who brings a whole different perspective to it. I really really appreciate that perspective. And my emails, I'm still getting emails now. I'm not going to read them because they're some of them aren't very nice, but I do want to share that I sent out the presentation that I shared tonight. I sent it out to the entire district this morning, and I've received back some very thoughtful responses from our employees. Some of them were just, hey, I appreciate the transparency, and I know this is difficult, and we're willing and able. Others have shared some of their own personal challenges, and I appreciate that. Others have been, are you crazy? We're in the middle of a pandemic. We can't come back. And others have said, I want to come back. And so really, it's all over the board on what is going to meet everyone's needs. But I think that we all can agree that distance learning is not what we were designed for, and none of us are overly happy with distance learning in itself. But it is serving a purpose. But it's a system, and so where some kids might be, maybe doing decent in distance learning, we have other kids who they aren't doing well, and it's affecting their physical, mental health. I 100% understand that, and so I don't think there's a magic wand that's going to fix all this. We just have to continue to be civil and continue to work from facts and to continue to talk about this. That's the way we're gonna get through this. So I really appreciate just the attentiveness of the board and your high level of questions and high level of expectations of me and staff during this difficult time.
Great.
Dr. Clark, I just had one quick question. As you put together a proposed timeline, will that include, so if, let's say, there's a target date in January, then backing off from there to when parent commitments would need to be made, will that be on the timeline as well?
Yes, and
Kind of a target date.
We'll put together that timeline. We'll put it out. I just want to preface, and it'll be on the recommendation, that all of it is subject to coming up with agreements with our labor groups, and it's subject to what is happening in our environment.
Yeah. Great, thank you for that. And
President Lawrence, I just wanted to thank Dr. Clark for his leadership on this, because it's not easy.
Yep.
And his calm demeanor is very appreciated.
Absolutely, and wholeheartedly agree. And I would just further say, one, I think for students and families who want to stay in distance learning, I think continually our board and Dr. Clark have said, we are not looking to force someone to go to a classroom when they are not comfortable doing so. Two, I think that at the same time we have this process, I know simultaneously Dr. Clark and our staff continue to look at how can we improve distance learning. It's a lot better than it was in the spring, but we know we can keep making it better, and that's going to benefit every student who stays in distance learning, the students who are in hybrid who will still have some aspect of distance learning, And I think, there may be opportunities for innovation going forward where we maintain some aspects of distance learning, whether it be for the summer or extra classes or things like that. But that could be a part of our curriculum going forward, and there are opportunities to improve on that. And, I would just put an extra emphasis on the fact that we do have to do this in partnership with our bargaining units, because frankly, if we say, okay, kids are going back, and there are no teachers and there's no staff, that doesn't work. And there is a teacher shortage in California. There are teachers and staff who have already since spring retired, and we've been looking to fill slots. And it's interesting, you see headlines around unemployment, but at the same time, there are spots right now that are very challenging to fill. And so both from I think we as a board, in terms of our values, are not wanting to force people where they don't feel safe, but also for a practical consideration is it has to be done in partnership, because otherwise it doesn't happen. So,
and I just want to acknowledge, I know that, we talk a lot about our teachers, but, our custodians, our office managers, our psychologists. I mean, we have six different units that we work with, and we have our managers. We have, not only is there a teacher shortage in the state, we have openings throughout the district. So, we're still looking to hire people in the business department. We're still looking to, hire custodians. We're looking to hire instructional aides. We were just finishing up interviews this afternoon for a vice principal. I mean, so if you're looking for work, you should check in on the Mount Diablo Unified School District, because we definitely have open positions across the board. But all of our employees are needed. And we really are working hard to make sure that we have strong relationships, with all of them. And I appreciate it. Carmen's comments earlier. I'm not going to debate with her in a public meeting. She leads a unit, and she's responsible for her members, and she's just working in the best interest of her members, as all of our presidents. Because I am going to bring others forward to the board as well to also share with you their interpretation of what's going on.
I think that was such a great strategy, Dr. Clark, to be bringing them in to speak to us, and just working so closely with all of our labor groups, because that is really how we're going to be successful. Everybody comes from their own perspective and understands what it is that they're facing at a school site or throughout the district, and they bring up very important points, as she did tonight, of things that we need to make sure that we're on top of and communicating. So I think I look forward to hopefully seeing the custodians come speak to us soon, because I know that's a really hot topic for the public as well, to understand really where are we in terms of our custodial staffing and plans. So perhaps that could be the next one. But then also at the school site, I would love to see, I know we have site councils that meet around certain things that include parents, teachers, and staff, but I'm not sure that the custodian is necessarily in the room for those meetings, or necessarily the front office staff. So if there was some way to get that group together at the school site level, to be able to then communicate out to that community for that school site what exactly their readiness level and the possibilities and feasibility of any of this is.
But and just in all transparency is, one thing, I mean, we can do surveys with all of our stakeholders. We can even do surveys with our teachers, and the teachers from the survey may say that they want a certain whatever it may be, right? And if CTA is putting out a message that's different than that, then it really doesn't matter what comes up on these surveys, right? That's the position. And many of our bargaining groups have parent organizations who are working to protect their members. And so what I would hate for a school site council to come up with a plan, and it's a well thought out plan, and they're buying from everyone, and then we're not able to execute that plan. I think that defeats people in the process, and then they're just gonna lose confidence in the district when, so anyway, I just want to be 100% transparent that these are some of the factors that we're dealing with as we're trying to go forward with, with everybody.
That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't mean that they would be negotiating
No, I know.
What's happening at the school site, more so what, looking at like the checklist of what we've already determined needs to be done, monitoring that it is being done and communicating that out to the community, that sort of thing. Thanks for clarifying that.
Absolutely. It takes a whole lot of people to make a school work, and we need them all. We're very appreciative. So thank you for, what I sometimes talk about teachers and staff. And so thank you, Dr. Clark, for fleshing out what we mean by staff and how important they are and how much they mean to this process. As a last housekeeping note, I think I know in our last couple meetings we've tried moving to Zoom and having people, and I think it's been nice instead of just the voicemails. I've heard that there were perhaps some people who weren't able to get in and things like that. We do have another meeting on Monday, and so for the Monday meeting, what I would offer is that anyone who is trying to get on the meeting, if you had difficulty, if they want to email me at lawrenceb@mdusd.org, I will make sure that we do have them for public comment on Monday, as well as the normal process. They can do both. But if anyone, my apologies if anyone had been trying to make a public comment this evening and wasn't able to do so, and we will do our absolute best to make sure that we get them on Monday night. Anything else from the board? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for, I think what everyone did a great job of is keeping this centered on students and how we best serve them. And now that we have one of our own students as a voice here, I think that was very impactful, and we appreciate that. So welcome, Ms. Alas. We loved having you, and we will look forward to seeing everyone on Monday night. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.